this session, even though this is almost the end of the year. We wanted to launch quoting for the last 2 weeks, and we were finally ready, and we wanted to launch this before the year ends so that this will be really helpful for all of our customers and our prospects who are evaluating us. And we believe that this is going to be a super addition to our platform, given that we already have the PSA, RMM, project management, and IT documentation modules within our platform. Quote management only seemed like the logical next step that we wanted to cover in our platform to make it much more efficient and useful for our customers. And when we were planning the roadmap for this quarter, we had quote management, of course, but we did not plan on taking this up in this quarter right away. We thought, yes, we should be adding it sometime in the solution, but it wasn't in our immediate roadmap. But then we received a lot of requests from many of you, and that made us realize that, yeah, it looks like that is something that most of our customers are struggling with. They seem to be paying license fees to other platforms just to solve for this particular problem. So we speeded up and we prioritized quote management in our roadmap, and we started building it. And we also discussed with many of the MSPs for this. We tried to understand what exactly were the pain points. It's, of course, not just creating a quote and sending a quote, but it was much more than that, right? The pain points were much more than just creating and sending a quote. So we wanted to address all of the issues that MSPs are facing today in their quote management process, and we wanted to build it holistically and within the SuperOps platform so that all of you can truly reap the benefits of having a unified platform for PSA, RMM, and all of these other operations. That said, I see many people who have joined the webinar, so I think we could have a start for this webinar. So for those of you who have joined in the last few seconds, thank you so much again for joining in this time of the year, given that many of us have gone on holidays, and of course, well-deserved holidays. And it is really happy. It makes me happy to see that all of you are interested in learning more about quoting in SuperOps. So starting the webinar, I would like to point out that when we think about quote management, it is not simply a C-load problem that sits in your business. It's not something that just needs to be done. This quote management has a big impact on your cash flow. This makes sure that you are sure about the amount of money that is going to flow in to your business at the end of every month or at every invoice cycle. And in the next few minutes, we'll see how a streamlined quoting process really helps you achieve a predictable cash flow, and why using quote management in SuperOps will really help you and really push you to achieve a predictable cash flow. So we did understand through our conversations with MSPs, it's obvious, right? Cash flow is something that is important for every business, and even more so for MSPs, because many of the MSPs have started new. That is, you probably have a few technicians and you have a few clients, and you're also actively trying to add on clients while not increase your spend, be it adding a new technician or investing in more tools. You are trying to keep your spend in the same level or even reduce it further, while you also increase your revenue and you also increase your client base. And especially looking ahead in the year 2023, it's going to be even more important for all of us, no matter what business we're in, to function as efficiently as possible to have the longevity for our business. So keeping that in mind, we realized that building quote management in SuperOps is going to be super critical for the next year. And that's the reason why we picked it up, we built it, and we shipped it right away. Now, these are the things that we're going to be seeing in this next 40 minutes. What are the current challenges that MSPs have when it comes to protecting their cash flow, when it comes to being at peace with the amount of cash that's going to flow into your business at every cycle? And then we're going to look at what is the value of having a streamlined quoting process? How does it really impact your business in the positive way? And then we'll have a quick demo of how you can do it within SuperOps. I'd like to point out that if you are an existing customer of SuperOps, and if you want quoting enabled in your account, you can reach out to your account manager or your salesperson and tell them that you want it, and they'll be able to help you out. And if you would like to try quote management in SuperOps, you can go ahead and sign up for a trial, and you can check out our quoting platform. And also, this video is being recorded, and this will be shared with all of you by tomorrow once we edit and make the video pretty enough for all of your consumption. And then we'll also be talking about what's coming up in quoting. Currently, we have built a certain part of quoting, and what can you expect more? How are we going to expand quote management within SuperOps? That'll be the final few minutes of this session. So let's quickly look at what are all the challenges that the MSPs that we spoke to, what did they tell us, and how that translated into the solution that is there today. So let's take Peter, for example. Peter is an owner of an MSP business, just like any of you here today, and he owns the MSP service called Super Services. It's a 3-year-old MSP. And his survival, the survival of his business, really depends on having a steady cash flow. Because with this cash flow is what he's going to be paying his technicians, he's going to be paying to his vendors, he's going to be paying the licenses for the software if he's going to do that. All of this really depends on having a steady cash flow. Now, like any other MSP business, Peter also faces several challenges in ensuring this steady cash flow. And some of the challenges are here, while if you have any other challenge that you are facing in ensuring a steady cash flow, please go ahead in the chat window of Zoom platform and please enter any other challenge that you're facing. These are the ones that we have collected from the MSPs that we have spoken to. The first one is having hiccups in the billing process, which means that the whole of the billing process, starting from adding the products, adding the services, capturing the time that is spent on providing the service, all of this, there is a hiccup there. And then converting them into invoices and sending them with the right amount, right? This whole process of billing, there is a hiccup there. And then the second one, and this is the most common one, which is clients having a pushback on the invoices. Now, we'll go in depth about this point in just a few minutes, but to give you context, let's say that your client is scheduled to pay for your invoices on every 13th of every month. And one month, there is a sudden increase in the invoice amount that you've spent. Clearly, you have done some service or you have provided some product to them in that particular month, but they are not aware of the cost of the service or the product that you have provided, which is over and above the contract that you have already worked on with them. Now, at that point, the client is going to push back saying, hey, this is an unexpected amount, and either I will not be able to pay it right now, or they would just want more information, or they're going to be delaying the payment, which is going to put you, the MSP owner, in a tight spot. And then there are other things like missing out to add services provided or losing a client due to external factors, which are just beyond your control. So while we look at it, we can see that, of course, there are some areas which none of the solutions can help with, which is like losing a client due to external factor. If a client closes shop because of some other business challenge that they're facing, that is a client loss that's not in your control. However, there are other things, other challenges that we were able to clearly identify and say that, hey, these can be really fixed by having a simple quoting solution, right? A simple quoting process that is going to make it much more easier and efficient for you to get this done. So this is where we wanted to focus, and these are the challenges that we wanted to solve. Now, let's see how this whole process happens and where exactly a streamlined quoting process will help. Let's take this. Let's take a client A calls Peter saying that, by the way, the client is an existing client, and this client calls Peter and says, hey man, I need to add 5 new employees and I need to be onboarding them. We need new laptops, we need new software installed in their devices. We just need all of this to be done. And Peter, the MSP owner, as soon as he receives this call from client A, he creates tickets and assigns them to technicians, and the technicians start working on them. And they purchase the hardware, the software, everything that is required to onboard these new 5 employees, right? And then when all of this is done, Peter is sending an invoice to the client with all of the new purchases that were done for this 5 new employees that were onboarded. Now, the client, even though the client was aware that they asked for this, they were not aware of the exact number that is going to cost them to provide this service, for the MSP to provide this service. So now the client is surprised that, hey, this is overshooting our budget. We knew that we asked you to help us with onboarding 5 new employees, but we did not know that this is what it's going to cost us. If we had known, we would have made some adjustments. Now, this is putting Peter in a tight spot where Peter is not able to pay his vendors from whom he purchased the hardware and software, and he's not able to pay his technicians because now he's in a deficit. So this is a situation that none of the business owners, especially MSP owners, want to be at. Now, if Peter had a streamlined process for quoting, if Peter had a straight friction-free billing process, how he would have done it? So the same thing happens. Client A calls Peter about 5 new employees that needs to be onboarded. Peter, before jumping the gun and buying the hardware and software, now creates a quote and sends it to the client for approval, including the exact amount that is going to cost for the client. Now, the client, if they need to, they make suggestions on the devices purchased based on, hey, this is expensive for us. Can we buy something within this particular range? And they make adjustments, and then they rework on the code and they send a new version of the code. And finally, the client approves the code. So now, before even Peter could purchase the hardware and software and whatever else that are required, both the client and Peter have an agreed upon number within which they need to stay for the provision of this request from client. Now, how does this really help? This helps the whole flow at different points. So the code is generated even before the work begins, which means that the agreement is made right before the work is actually done. And then the client also gets an opportunity to suggest changes, revise the code. It makes it so much easier for both the parties involved. And the code version is also updated to maintain the code trial, because we've heard so many of our MSPs tell us that, okay, I create a code, I send it. When the client suggests changes, I'll have to just kill the code and create a new code altogether right now. Now, by the end of the month, there are so many codes that are floating in my tool, and I have no idea, no context about what happened to those codes. Now, that is what the code versioning is going to solve for. I'll be explaining it a little more in detail over the demo. And then there is no surprise for either of them when it is time for the invoice to be handled. And all of this finally leads for Peter, the MSP owner like you, to have a predictable cash flow, to really ensure that Peter knows exactly what is the amount that's going to reach his bank on the particular day. Now, isn't that what every one of you here wants? Every one of us wants. This is exactly what quoting in SuperOps is going to help you with. Now, let's quickly go to the demo. Okay, so here, for everyone present, here is the module of all of the things that are available in SuperOps platform. For those of you who are new to our platform, who have not watched our platform in action, here's where you can see that you have the PSA parts, which is the tickets, tasks, projects, the clients, contracts, invoices, and sales inbox, and all of it. And then you also have the RMM part of it, which is the assets, alerts, patch management, and a whole scripting module. And then on top of it, you also have IT documentation, which I'm sure many of you use another tool to manage your IT documentation. And then we have reporting, which cuts across all of these modules, which makes it super easy for you to build a report that truly makes sense. You do not have to build a report on your PSA separately and then build a report on RMM separately and one for IT documentation and project management, and then try and put them all together and try and make sense of all of it together. Instead, you can build a report that can pull out data from across all of these modules. That is one of the true beauties of having a truly unified platform, something that's not just integrated with other solutions, but instead built together in one single platform. Now that is what SuperOps is at a very high level. Now let's go to the coding module, which is available under client management as codes. So here under clients, you can see all of the codes that are available. You can also view the approved codes, the closed codes, the ones that are draft, and the ones that are pending. So here you can see, you will have a clear idea of what are the different statuses of codes. There is no code which does not have a clear status marked to it. It would either be pending, which is waiting for approval from the client, or it is a draft, which means that it has not even been sent to your client. If it is a closed code, it is either rejected or it is expired. That comes and sits in the closed code. And then the approved codes are the ones that have been approved. Now it is up to you to whether convert it into an invoice or to wait until the invoice time comes for you to convert it. And in the approved code, here is the view of the approved codes. You can see that these are the codes that have been invoiced, and here is one that has not been invoiced. So in just one look, you can have an idea of what are the codes that have been approved, but have not yet been converted into invoices and have been sent to the client yet. Now, a few of the MSPs have highlighted this particular thing as one of the main problems for them in identifying the codes which are approved but have not been converted into invoices yet. It takes a lot of time to figure that out in their current PSA tool to do it. While in SuperOps, it's just one look and you'll be able to figure it out. And then all of the codes are available here. Now, here is the button where you can click to create a new code. Now, let's say that just for the webinar, this is a code that I want to create. And this is a demo environment. So here's where your MSP's branding is going to come. This is a test environment that multiple users use within our organization. So there's always changes happening here. So I'm going to choose a client. You can see that when a client is selected, then their site is also selected automatically. And here is where you can put the expiry date. Expiry dates are very important for codes because the amount that you mention in your quote has a particular expiry date. For example, you might get a quote from a vendor. The vendor is going to give you an expiry date for that particular amount that they specify. A laptop might be priced for $700, but only up to the end of this month. Once the next month comes in, that $700 does not hold true anymore. It might become $650 or $750. So that is why having the expiry date is extremely important. And we have made the system where we will not be able to send the quote if the expiry date is not mentioned, so that we are avoiding a situation where you might send a quote without an expiry date. For those of you who have questions, please keep asking them on the chat panel or on the Q&A panel, and we'll get to it towards the end of the session. I'm the only one presenting, so I'll be answering the questions. We'll get to it by the end of the webinar. Okay, so now that we have added the client, we have added the expiry date, now it's time for us to add the products and services that we want to. Let's search if there is a laptop. Yes, we have a laptop. And let's say I also want to add a bunch of other services. Let's say a bunch of things. Okay, so I have added whatever I need from the service catalog for this particular code. And here I'll be able to edit whatever that I have to. And if you need to give a discount, you can do that as well. And you can select what kind of tax you want to add for this particular invoice, for this particular code. Same goes for all of this, right? So now we have everything ready. And here's going to be the content, which is going to go out along with this. So I'm going to click Save and Send. And once I click it, it says that the code has been created successfully. And here is the email with which the code is going to go out to your particular client. Now, here I would like to pause for a minute to highlight a few things. You can see that this ID has been automatically populated because we have set this particular requester as the client admin or as the person who needs to receive the codes. I'll show you once I'm done with showing the flow of the demo, flow of the code. I'll show you how you can set up all of those things, right? But that is one small automation that we have done, which we truly believe will save you time in figuring out who it should be sent to. So you can pre-configure it so that it is pre-populated. And everything that you see here is also a template that you can completely customize. And even after customizing, you can still edit it. Let me know if there are any changes, right? You can edit it to the extent that you want to. And even here, you can change the user that you want to send this. If it is a particular requester who has raised this request that you need the approval from that particular person, you can send it to them also. So let's go ahead and send this code. Okay. So now we have sent the code. Now let's go to the clients tool. So this is the client portal. I have logged in as Michael Scott. I am the client, I'm the requester to whom we sent the code to right now. So this is the client portal, and we have logged in their portal, and you can see that the code that we just sent has arrived here. Just a second, let me pull that up. Here you go. So here I can see under all conversations, we can see the code that I just sent right now. This is showing in my current time zone, which is 9:54 p.m. right now. And let's look at the code. So here is everything that we've seen. You can see the edit that we've made just now in the code. And you can see that the link to the code is available right here. So I'm going to click on it and I'm going to see where it takes me to. Okay, so here is the code that we just sent, test for webinar. And here are the items that we added, the unit prices that we set up, and here is the total price. Now here, again, I would like to note a few points. I can clearly see that this is waiting for my approval, and I can see the date on which it was created. I can see the date within which I have to approve or reject this. So I have a clear idea of when I'll have to take action on this code. And I have the option to approve it or reject it right from here. Or if I want to go back to the portal, I can do that as well. Or if I need to have this code in my machine, or if I want to send it internally to someone else, I can do that as well. I can download it as a PDF and I can have it with me. Now, let's say that I as Michael Scott find that this is too expensive, right? I want to find some laptop that is lesser than, let's say, $600. So I'm going to say that, hey, Tim, can we find a laptop that is lesser than $600? So here, what I'm doing is when I reject a quote, who is rejecting the quote is being captured, and why exactly is it being rejected is also captured. And now I'm going to send it, and you can see that this quote has been rejected. It has been stamped that it is rejected. So there is no confusion as to what happened to this particular quote. Now let's come back here and see what happened to the quote here so that we understand if the rejection from the client is visible to me as the technician who sent it. I can see that the client has rejected it. I can see that the rejection stamp is here. Now I need to know why exactly was this rejected. And here's where the conversation history comes in. Now here, anything that goes on between you and the client, be it as part of an email or as part of a suggestion or as part of the approval or rejection comment, everything is going to be captured right next to the quote, right within the quote. So there is no confusion about which conversation was pertaining to which quote or what happened to this particular version of the quote. I can see that Michael needs a laptop that is lesser than 600. So I'm going to say, sure, Michael, let me work on that and send you a new quote, a revised quote. So now I know that I need to revise this quote and send it to Michael. So now I have the option to revise this quote. You can see at the top corner that I have the option to revise it, which means that this quote is going to be revised, which means that it is not going to create another quote that is just hanging around. So I'm going to revise, which means that I do not have to add all of the items from the service catalog all over again. Everything is going to be taken from the previous quote, which again saves a lot of time for you. Now, I know that Michael asked for something that is less than 600. So I'm going to go ahead and find something within that range, and I'm going to give him a price. Now I'm going to send this again to Michael Scott. Now you can see that since the previous conversation was with Michael Scott, here the same email ID has been fetched. Now it is not the Rachel Zane email ID, which was previously fetched, but it is now the person with whom the conversation is currently happening. I'm going to click send on this again, and I can see that the quote has been updated successfully. Now let's go back. So a bunch of back and forth like this, and you get the idea that your client gets the opportunity to approve it or reject it based on whether how they want to go about it, right? So once they approve it, you'll be able to see everything that goes on in that went on in that particular quote. Now, once this is done, once you have a quote approved, the other thing that you might need to know is to see what are all the changes that have happened in the particular in the particular quote that you had sent, right? And for that, you need to be able to see all of the versions that had been created for that particular quote. Now let's take a quote, and this is where the version history that I mentioned about is going to be helpful for us to see what are all the changes that has been done for a particular quote, and why were all of those changes done? What is the context behind all of those changes? I'm trying to find a quote that has a lot of versions that you can see. Let me quickly find one so that we can go over the version history. I'm very excited about showing the version history to all of you, because that is something that many of our clients mention that it is something that is important for them. let me quickly find the one that I created earlier so that it is, yeah, I think this should have one because it is something that I tried when I was testing. So this should be available. Yeah, so here you can see that this is an approved code, but you want to see what were all the changes that happened to that, right? So here is the ability to see the version history. You can see that there was a previous version, and you can see that these are the amounts that have been quoted, and the total amount was $4,930 that was quoted. And then a change was made, and 4,030 is the new amount. So you can see that these are the two versions of the same code. These are not two individual codes, but instead the same version, different versions of the same code. And everything starting from the services that are added to the expiry date, everything remains the same. So this version history really helps you to audit and understand what were the changes that happened, to know that how did we arrive on this number for this particular code. Now you have sent the code, gotten the approval, you know what are the changes that have been made to the particular code, and you also know why they were made and what are the different versions that are existing. Now you have the approval from your client. All you need to do is create an invoice for an approved code. You have the generate invoice button right over here, which is just one click to generate an invoice for an approved code. Now we have made a limitation where the generate invoice button appears only for an approved code, because only that makes sense, right? Only when a code is approved should it be converted into an invoice. So let's click on invoice, and you can see that a code has been created successfully. So here's the invoice that has been created successfully. Everything that we have has been added here, and you can see that you can sync it with Xero for your invoicing and accounting, and you can also send the invoice to your client directly. And you can also edit the invoice even at this stage, mark it as paid, export CSV, add note, anything that you want to make additions to this particular invoice, you can do that as well. And you can download it as PDF and keep it for your own reference for later. So once you send the invoice, it reaches your client's inbox directly, and it makes it very easy for your clients to make the payment through Stripe, through the Stripe integration that we provide, or any other payment gateway that you have. So now that is a quick demo of how the whole code management process happens in SuperOps and how it really helps you. And there were some of the highlights that I wanted to point out, but we'll come back to it. Let me now quickly show you how you can set up some of the notifications that we mentioned. So here under settings, under email notifications, you can see that we have client notifications. And here you can see that what are the notifications that has to be sent to the technician when a quote is approved or when a quote is rejected. You can also edit it so that you can customize it however to suit your business. And then there is the request to notification. So whenever a quote is created, what is the email that needs to go out to them, and what should be the content of the email that goes out along with the quote, right? So these are the email notifications that are related to quotes and the quoting module that you can edit under email notifications. And then you have the quote and invoice settings, where you have the template customization for quotes template. Now, this is where you can edit the template of your quote. So here is a template that we have. You can edit it right here to mention that these are the areas that needs to be edited. So what should be the message over here? What should be the message in the footer? These are all things that you can edit directly to make it more branded, coming directly from your MSP. So these are the two main settings that I wanted to show you, that you can customize the quote templates and the email notifications to suit to suit your MSP brand. Now, that said, I would like to highlight a few points that we saw on the quote management process, where you will be able to create a quote and send it through to your client through the email. You have the ability to add an expiry date, which is mandated. Without the expiry date, you will not be able to send the quote to your client. And you can add the services, add the items from the service catalog directly here, and you can also edit whatever that you need to edit right from here. And you're enabling your client to accept or reject the quotes directly from their client portal. They will also receive a public link through which they can make the approval or rejection. But here's where you can see that you're giving your client the ability to do it. And here's where we also spoke about version history. And version history really helps you to see what are all the different versions of this particular code that exists, what are all the changes that you've made, and how it will help you have a better audit system for your codes. And then here is the single click conversion of approved code to invoices. And once you convert it into invoice, it depends on whether you want to send the invoice right away, or if you want the invoice to go out in the regular invoice schedule that you have defined for that particular client. And we have the different quote views where the status of a quote is clearly identified. There are no quotes that are hanging around that are floating with no indication of what's happening with that particular quote. And then we have the settings for the code where you can customize the email notifications. You can customize the code template. You can customize the technician notifications for every code that you send out. Now, that is a quick overall demo of what quote management is in SuperOps. And I would like to quickly, okay, this is something that we have an internal demo by a product manager who built the quote module. So the final section that I wanted to talk to you all about is our vision for quoting. All of this, whatever you have seen so far, is already going to save you so much of time, so much of confusion and predictability issues with respect to your cash flow. With the versions, you're going to be able to see exactly what went on with the quote. You do not have multiple quotes floating around in your system. With the conversation that are linked to a particular quote, you're going to get the complete context of what were the changes suggested by your client. If you have any internal conversations with other technicians, those are also captured in the conversation that are right next to the quote. And you also have the ability to quickly convert the quotes into invoice. All of these right from within your PSA tool. I'd really like to stress on the fact that all of these that you're seeing are going to be available within SuperOps platform. It is not going to be something separate that you need to integrate with this, whereas the other MSP providers, other platforms make you integrate with other tools like Zomentum or Quoteworks or IT Quotes, or there are so many different vendors who provide this, and you'll have to pay extra for a license for that just for this purpose. And even when you do that, the context that is available in your quote, in your PSA system, the client information, the tickets that you have added for them, the custom pricing that you have for that particular customer or client, all of this information that is available in your PSA is not going to be available in a different quoting system if you choose to do that. But when you use SuperOps, you get all of that in one platform, making it super efficient for you to have a very streamlined quoting process. Now, that said, when we already do all of this in our quoting, we're also thinking about how to make it better, how to make it much more interesting and useful for all of you. So converting an approved quote into a ticket. So once you approve a quote with your client, you immediately want to convert it into a ticket so that a technician picks up and starts executing on them. That is coming up in the next version of quoting. The next update that we'll be launching will have that ability. And then we'll have vendor conversations. We're going to be able to let you have conversations with your vendors right from within the platform, because as we saw in the particular example, you're going to have to procure devices or software from different vendors. And when you have those conversations with the vendors separately via an email or another tool, again, the context is going to be missing. When you have the ability to have those conversations with your vendors right from within the code, so you have the conversations with your vendors and you have the conversations with your clients, all of this happening within the code, it really makes you super efficient, where you have the context of everything that's going on around code management. And then you'll be able to see the associated codes in your ticket view. If you click on a ticket, you'll be able to see what are all the codes that are associated to that particular ticket. And then we're also going to be opening up code creation APIs, which means that if you're still using another tool to create your codes, then you can still do it. You can create a code from any of that tool and continue the rest of the process from within SuperOps.ai. These are all the functionalities that we will be adding to code management in the coming up weeks. So this is the vision that we have for code management within SuperOps.ai. Okay, so that said, I will be ending the session very soon. So let me know if you have any question. I'm just going to wait for 1 more minute for the time to be officially over. But those of you that need to leave, please feel free to leave. I'll be ending the session in just exactly a minute.